Good morning. I'm Constable Richard Chin, Peel Regional Police Public and Media Relations Officer. I'd like to take this time to ask everybody to ensure that your cell phones and devices have been silenced. On behalf of Peel Regional Police, I want to thank you for joining us here today and welcome you to our headquarters in Mississauga. I'd like to begin by first acknowledging that the land on which we gather is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous people have inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. Today, we are here to share the results of an auto theft insurance fraud investigation named Project Memphis. We'll be hearing from Chief Nishan Duryappa and Acting Detective Sergeant Simon Kennedy from our 11 Division Criminal Investigation Bureau. We also have the lead investigators, Detective Constables Eveland and Truman, to answer any questions. At the conclusion of this conference, there will be an opportunity for questions. I would ask that you limit your questions to one and one follow-up, and please be specific to the topic in this news conference. A media officer can be available after the conference for any further questions. And please use the microphones that are here before you in the front. I now call upon Chief Duryappa. Sir.
Thank you, Richard, and good morning, everyone. I want to thank our media outlets for being here, as well as some of our guests that are here that are partners in it. I'm, again, proud of our people, and it's an opportunity for me to introduce the investigative lead who will be sharing outcomes of another successful project here in Peel Regional Police, this one dubbed Project Memphis. This comes on the heels of Project Sterling, which we at Peel Police announced last week, November 7th, which was a carjacking investigation that came to a conclusion. Project Memphis was a complex, multifaceted investigation that led to the disruption and dismantling of an organized group, a theft crime ring that prevented significant insurance fraud here in Ontario. And I want to highlight the fact that the auto theft issue is, as you know, a very complex one. It's one that's going to require multiple investigative efforts, and today is another example of one. Auto crime is still one of the most profound issues facing our community here, not just in Peel, but nationally. It's not only impacting public safety and the security of everyone and their feeling of safety at home, but as you will hear and we can discuss, it's impacting people's pocketbooks and their well-being from a financial standpoint as well. I have to highlight that I'm proud of our investigators that are here. We've got Acting Detective Sergeant Kennedy, but our investigators as well. They have been working tirelessly to arrest and dismantle this group, who are responsible for vehicle thefts, but also preventing hundreds of thousands of dollars in insurance fraud and stopping the flow of money that would likely have supported other criminal activities, which we know for sure. Quite often, the discussion on auto theft has been revolved around vehicles that have been exported, but this one is focusing on the complex nature of vehicles being re-vended and fraudulently resold and the insurance implications that subsequently come. Unfortunately, in Peel Region, we are no exception to this trend. Peel Region continues to make investments into the investigative side and the enforcement capacity to disrupt this trend. I'm telling you, we're going to make significant efforts to arrest more people, lay more charges, and recover more vehicles than we ever have, and also making efforts to ensure that we prevent auto crime here in Peel Region. I want to thank the support that we get from our Peel Police Services Board, as well as our elected officials who know that this is important work and are ensuring that we have the resources to continue to make headway in this space. I'd also like to commend the partnership and cooperation across the policing environment, particularly Durham Regional Police and Woodstock Police Services for their collaboration and commitment in this particular investigation. We would be absolutely nowhere without being able to thank our partners at Equite, the Canada Border Services Agency, and the Ontario Motor Vehicle Industry Council, who are all also here with us today. This collaboration is the way forward, in tandem with continued education and ensuring that the public knows how to prevent this auto crime. But working with industry partners is the key. We know it's not just a law enforcement approach only. And once again, lastly, I want to highlight the remarkable work of our investigators and thank them tremendously. There are many more of them behind the scenes working tirelessly across our region, particularly our Criminal Investigations Bureau. Today is from 11th Division, but also members of our Commercial Auto Crime Bureau, which I must say is going to be one of the largest in Canada. The emphasis on this space is another step forward in combating this issue. It's now my pleasure to introduce Acting Detective Sergeant Simon Kennedy from 11th Division Criminal Investigations to share more details about Project Memphis.
Thank you, Chief, and good morning, everyone. I'm Acting Detective Sergeant Simon Kennedy, 11th Division Criminal Investigation Bureau. We recognize that a rise in auto thefts have caused widespread concern and fear within our communities. That is why investigations such as these provide us with the opportunity to demonstrate our steadfast approach in holding those accountable and responsible. With that, we're here to share the results of our investigation, Project Memphis. Project Memphis was a lengthy, collaborative investigation that began as a result of a tip received from a community partner in early 2023. The investigation involved multiple bureaus within our service, external police agencies, and community partners, including Equite Association and the Ontario Motor Vehicle Industry Council, or OMVIC. The investigation identified a group of individuals that were operating within the GTA and were responsible for sourcing re-VINed stolen vehicles, fraudulently re-registering them, and then proceeding to traffic those vehicles throughout southwestern Ontario. As a result of the comprehensive investigation, it was determined that the accused individuals used their pre-existing knowledge in the automotive and finance industry to complete these fraudulent transactions. It is believed that the re-VIN vehicles were trafficked to buyers who were paid to fraudulently buy the vehicles. In some cases, the buyers attempted to submit fraudulent insurance claims by reporting their vehicle stolen. To date, we have recovered 9 stolen vehicles valued at over $1.2 million and prevented over $350,000 in fraud insurance. We have made a total of 12 arrests and laid 81 charges, including trafficking in property obtained by crime, possession of property obtained by crime, fraud-related offenses, and conspiracy to commit. The following individuals from Mississauga, Toronto, Hamilton, and Brampton have been each charged with multiple counts of trafficking in stolen goods, fraud over $5,000, forgery, utter forged documents, conspiracy of fraud or to commit fraud, and fraudulent concealment. These individuals are 26-year-old Tristan Serrano, 24-year-old Joshua Cunanan, 23-year-old Frank Martin Cruz, 25-year-old Destiny Ogeva, 25-year-old Rahul Bedi, 26-year-old Andrew Enriquez, 26-year-old Martin Suyat, 32-year-old Angeline Suyat, 29-year-old Krista McIntyre, 24-year-old John Ruivavar, 36-year-old Mahmoud Chahede, and 24-year-old Sir Azim. I'd like to thank the investigative team for their dedication and their partnered agencies for their commitment and assistance. We will now open up to questions from the media.
Good morning. Morgan Karachi from City News. Just wondering if you could maybe go through a little bit more of what happens when these vehicles are stolen and who's buying them. Is it the general public that's buying them? And if it is the general public, then what can people do to kind of make sure that they're not buying a stolen vehicle?
So I'm going to turn that over to one of the investigators, Detective Constable Eveland.
To answer your question, in relation to this investigation, the vehicles are being sourced by the individuals that were charged, and the customers that were buying them were also involved by receiving funds by the people that were sourcing the vehicles.
So basically, if you're somebody, so it's all internal, it's all looped together in terms of like the general public wasn't involved in any of this.
In relation to this investigation, the general public was not involved.
I see.
Peter Edwards, Toronto Star. Were the vehicles going to dealerships?
The vehicles were trafficked through a local dealership, yes.
Just one dealership?
There was multiple, sir.
And have they been charged?
The dealerships were not involved.
So the dealerships didn't realize they were getting stolen cars?
Exactly.
So if I bought one of those cars, would I legally own it,
You would legally own the vehicle if you purchased it, yes.
even though it was stolen?
Sorry, even if the vehicle was stolen,
Yeah, like if I buy a Rivian vehicle and I don't know, am I on the hook for it?
you could be, yes. But again, in relation to this investigation, there was no one involved in the general public that acquired these vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Linda Ward from CBC.
Hello.
You mentioned, or the acting detective mentioned about the pre-existing knowledge or information that the accused had in being able to carry out this operation. Can you talk a little bit about what that pre-existing knowledge was and how they used it? I noticed most of them, or all of them really, seem to be pretty young.
Yes. Through our investigation, we determined that the majority of the individuals have an employment history in the automotive industry or the automotive finance industry. The way in which these vehicles was trafficked was complex and it would involve insider knowledge to circumvent certain systems that are in place to prevent this from happening.
Is that part of the revinning process? Because I'm not clear on how that kind of happens with the revinning. Can you give me just like a bit of a revinning for dummies? Like, how do you do that?
Revinning involves either using cloned VINs from other vehicles or fictitious VINs and placing them over the real VIN of a motor vehicle and then registering it through the ministry.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, just a follow-up in terms of what Linda was asking. So this sounds like this only works if all these people are involved together, right? Like this is something that I don't know if you can call it a crime ring or not, but it just sounds like all these parts had to fit together in order for this to work out. Is that correct?
In relation to this investigation, we believe that all of the people involved had to be involved for this to work out.
What type of vehicles are we talking about?
In relation to the vehicles that were recovered,
Yeah.
yeah, we recovered domestic manufactured vehicles such as Dodge Rams, Jeep Wranglers. We also recovered BMWs, Range Rovers, and a Bentley.
Bentley?
How many, I mean, you said, I think it was 9 have been recovered, is that right?
That's correct.
But how many more do you think might be out there that they've had their hands on?
In relation to this specific group of people, we believe we have recovered all of the vehicles or identified all of the vehicles.
Okay, so 9 is all the vehicles, or 9 plus others you haven't been able to find yet?
We've located most of the vehicles. Some had been reported stolen prior to us beginning our investigation. And in that circumstance, if they've been reported stolen, oftentimes they've disappeared or they've been revinned again.
Okay, thank you.
And how long had this been in operation
Since March of this year,
of this year?
yes.
And we do have time for one last question.
You mentioned off the top Woodstock and Durham. Can you talk about how these vehicles were stolen? Were they stolen from driveways? And what role or how these vehicles moved around? Were they stolen in Peel and tried to be sold in these other jurisdictions or vice versa?
Yes, most of the vehicles were stolen either from residential driveways or from dealerships off of the lots. They were then sold to individuals involved that resided outside of the city, up to and including Woodstock, Toronto, and then Brampton and Mississauga.